You might think Shadow is 30 to 40 years old. That's only correct for Shadow Fight 2, but with the third version of the series, it's a different story. You wouldn't believe. How old has Shadow become by the beginning of Shadow Fight 3? To determine his age, we have to make a timeline of events that took place after Shadow Fight 2 and before Shadow Fight 3. First of all, the developers of the series announced Shadow Fight Shades, a game which describes period of time right after Shadow Fight 2. However, as it's not finished yet at the time of making this video, we will estimate it to be 10 years at least. So what facts do we have now? In Shadow Fight 3, we see Shadow as a middle-aged man. However, you shouldn't trust his appearance. He is really old. Events in Shadow Fight the 3rd of May give us some insight into his age. Shadow's descendant discovers a time loop in which legendary General Marcus is stuck. This guy was known to be among the strongest commanders in the history of the Legion. He was considered to be dead long time ago, but Descendant discovers him alive, thanks to the time trap. Bolo set him there. It's directly said that he spent at least several decades there. Also, no one from the Legion has ever seen Marcus with their own eyes. Everyone has heard of him though, which means he spent at least 70 years in that trap. And before getting trapped, he already had lived at least 40 years since he had enough time to become a general. Look at the graph. We have just calculated that Shadow is at least 150 years old, but don't hurry. There is even more. Shadow's descendant, alongside with Marcus, travels to Shadow's island. A little girl called Moira is found on his island. Marcus is actually shocked to see Moira. When Marcus was a kid, he saw her paintings on the wall and was told that it was the daughter of the founder of the Legion, who was lost a long time ago. We can't say for sure how lengthy is that period of time, but that's at least 50 years. If it's less than that, you wouldn't call Moira's story quite old. Let's also add the fact that she was saved as nearly a 10-year-old girl. We later learn King of the Legion, also its founder, had founded the Legion before he had his daughters. At the time the Legion was founded, Shadow joined the king to make the future Legion. Why did he do so? He wanted to destroy the Shadow Mind, and Legionnaires shared his ideology. This actually happened after May's death. We don't know for sure how much time had passed between the worst day in Shadow's life and the foundation of the Legion. With very rough and minimized estimates, we can see that Shadow is at least 220 years old at the beginning of Shadow Fight 3. Very young for his appearance, don't you think? But how old is he by the end of Shadow Fight 3? After Descendant travels in time with his Shadow Mind, around 10 years pass. The battle between the Descendant and Shadow happens. Then the same storyline is created again and again until, finally, the Stranger gets the powers he needs. The timelines get mixed together, and Shadow realizes what he has done wrong, and decides to help the good Descendant by eliminating copies of the Stranger. It's not mentioned exactly, but we can speculate he spent thousands of years there. He also was later trapped in a time loop, where he spent a reasonable amount of time, until one cyborg decided to help him. In the timeline of the final battle, Shadow dies, and May lives instead. The world is created again, after the good Descendant wins. If Shadow gets to keep all his previous memories, he's at least several thousand years old at the end of Shadow Fight 3. At the beginning of Shadow Fight 3 he is more than 220 years old. At the end of Shadow Fight 3 he is thousands of years old at least. In Shadow Fight 2, he is between 30 to 40 years old. Thanks for watching.